Okay, so next presenter is Dr. Helma Sawatzky. She's a visual artist, and she's also an instructor in arts and design. And her title of today's presentation is the Poetree Project. So Helma,
All right, so in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of making this project, and I'm going to contextualize this particular work as well as my art practice with some of the common thematic strands that run through much of my work, which are intuition, awareness, and implication. And I have a script, and I promised myself I'm going to stick to it so that I don't ramble on and go past time. So here we go. So a week ago or so, we commemorated that it was exactly 4 years ago that when all of us were shaken into this deeper awareness about how entangled human existence is on both subcellular and global levels. We were witness to this butterfly effect of sorts, in which something that stirred the intricate web of life on the other side of the globe had immediate and far-reaching impact on all of humanity worldwide. Overnight, we had to face the reality that every space we entered, every surface we touched, every person we encountered, and even the very air we breathed might pose an imminent threat to our lives and the lives of those around us. And this awareness hit hard because it was so immediate and so real. However, many of the ecological crises we are now forced to face have been a very long time coming. And many of us have been too distracted to pay attention and take substantive action. Time and attention are precious commodities in contemporary society. Ecologist and philosopher David Abram captured these ecological concerns of that state of distraction very well when he wrote, "Caught up in a mass of abstractions, our attention hypnotized by a host of human-made technologies that only reflect us back to ourselves. It is all too easy for us to forget our carnal inherence in a more than human matrix of sensations and sensibilities." And he concludes his reflection saying that we are human only in contact with and conviviality with what is not human. Cultural theorist Donna Haraway amplifies and expands on that profound interconnectedness of all living beings by extending it to that subcellular level when she argues that we are compost, not post-human. We inhabit the humosities, not the humanities. And she concludes for herself that philosophically and materially, I am a compostist, not a post-humanist. So what I value about her writing is that she articulates so evocatively how human existence is fully dependent on and interdependent with non-human and microscopic species. Just think about the trillions of symbiotic microbial cells that live in and on our bodies, microscopic critters that play a crucial role in our digestion, metabolism, immunity, even our brain function, I'm told. So I find that awareness is such an important starting point for substantive change in our actions and the transformation of our way of life. And awareness begins with coming to our senses, both literally in terms of our bodies and metaphorically in terms of our worldview. As an artist and teacher, much of my creative and didactic energies go towards the art of coming to our senses, of learning to see, hear, and feel more, of being really present in the moment, of being attentive to what is happening, and in the context of the creative process, to participate with it. In my art practice and scholarly work, I've described my approach as data mulching. I bring together different sources of data, visual, verbal, material, conceptual, temporal, spatial, which I then mulch in ways that generate a fertile soil for new meanings to emerge. This is important to me, and it is also important to me that those who engage with my work also get to participate in that creative process of meeting them. This way of working, data mulching, started during my years at Emily Carr University of Art and Design. I guess that's the whole word now. And I developed this habit of peeking into the compost bins, which you can see there, on Granville Island on my way to school. And I was both delighted and very troubled by what I saw in there. And I started to photograph the contents. Now, due to the very limited image resolution of my old digital camera, I thought I might be able to achieve the large photo prints I envisioned by constructing composite images out of dozens of detailed shots. My goal was to create that seamless photographic image. But in reality, the shifting perspective between frames from that process of photographing like that resulted in significant misalignments. Both the subject matter and this process of making images then led me to explore the idea of mulching the image data into a new composite, or perhaps more aptly compost state, to let go of seamlessness and to embrace those gaps and multiplications of meaning that occurred naturally in those misalignments. In terms of both subject matter and visual language, the Data Mulch series resonates with my own cultural heritage. The 17th century Dutch still life tradition in which everyday objects, flowers, fruit, insects, and signs of decay together create a visual language that speaks to ephemerality and transience. These large upright panels from the Data Mulch series, and I incorporated human figure to give you a sense of the scale on what things look like in the exhibition, present themselves as mirrors in which we come face to face with that reflection of our culture. They speak to the fragility and implication of human embodiment in the earth that sustains us. And it was through my work on this series that I spent a lot of time pondering the everyday practices that actively harm the very ground of our existence. And that's the problem that we can't just recycle away. Away, it turns out, always shows up somewhere else, in the land, the oceans, the many non-human critters that call this planet home, and in our bodies. It is a problem that affects all of us and that needs an existential and radical shift in awareness and our way of life to make change a reality. The Poetree Project is all about deepening that awareness of the profound entanglement of all of life, of connecting more deeply to that ground of our existence and the world we share with our non-human life companions. This site-specific installation is like an embodied contemplation of the kind of awareness and compassion that can transform action. This artwork was first hosted by the trees in the old apple orchard of Darts Hill Garden Park in Surrey. When I walked through that garden to choose a site for my project, I was struck by this family of elders on the hillside who had been living and growing there together for a very long time. They share their roots, the soil, and their life journey, and every year they bear fruit together. I played with this idea of giving the trees a voice by way of creating an In Vivo poetry generator inspired by an operating principle of the fridge magnet poetry that you may be familiar with. I curated a series of words and sentence fragments that contemplate how our existence is deeply entangled with that of our non-human neighbors. I was able to get my hands on some previously used cedar fence posts that I could repurpose for this project. I used a water-based acrylic medium to transfer the words onto these cedar slats. I spent a couple of hours negotiating with the trees and the branches about what to hang where. And in that process, I leaned heavily into that sense of intuitive flow, being present and attentive, looking around, listening and following in terms of what I hung where. What has delighted me about this project is that it does something that I did not anticipate at all at the beginning. It was a windy day when I installed the work, and as soon as these cedar panels were suspended with the jute twine they would start whirling like dervishes on their axes, and as they were stirred by the wind in the branches. I wandered around and I stood among the trees, and I saw these short poems emerge in the moment. And it really was as if those trees began to talk. I was delighted by what this artwork was doing, and I was so grateful to hear that visitors to Darts Hill, who spent some time with the Poetry Project, had shared a similar experience. So that concludes my short presentation. Here is a map that shows you where you can find the Poetry Project, just outside the DeVries Center. It's a rainy day, there's not much wind, so there is less chattiness among the trees today, but they will still say something, and I hope you'll find some time to meander along the trees and listen. So you go out the building here, you walk down the parking lot, and here's cars as well, and you will see there's an area with these 5 trees that host the project together. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Teddy?
Hi, were you surprised at any of the poetry that came through or the messages from the trees? Or what surprised you?
What surprised me? Well, that it is more dynamic and ever-changing than I could have anticipated. I brought some vocabulary to the table, but as I was walking, and like you start making connections, right? Like you suddenly see, we are the universe delighted, or things like that, and it becomes this very kind of contemplative thing that I really had not anticipated in that way. I was really surprised by it, and it was a great source of joy, and also a sense of when you work on art projects that ideally you are participating with that creative flow that runs through all of life, and it's almost like a decentering experience. Yeah. Yes? You are.
Yes.
More of a comment. I had the opportunity to engage with the piece the other day when it was sunny and there was a little bit of a breeze, and I think it's absolutely stunning, but also there's a bit of like an auditory piece to it as you sort of move through it. And as the
highway sounds.
Yeah, the highway sounds, but also as like the wood pieces move around and kind of clank against the branches, and like there's something very like centering and beautiful about it. So I love the idea of seeing sort of the poetry emerge, but I think there's also sort of a little bit of like a dialogue and a bit of a symphony that happens internally as well as you're sort of engaged in the piece. So I wanted to thank you for that. And just to ask how long it's going to be up.
It will for sure be up another week, maybe 2. I kind of want to see what the trees are going to do. They're about to burst out blooming, and I want to wait till they're done blooming before I start kind of trying to untangle the ropes. And it depends a little bit too on how long Trinity will let me have it on there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
The next question. Sarah.
What's next? Is this springboarded you in any particular direction?
Well, that's very interesting and unknown for me, because up till now I did a lot of work with these photo composites. I was always taking pictures and then behind the computer doing my thing, kind of piecing these things all together. And this came after COVID, and this was an outdoor exhibition, and I was invited by this collective to say, well, do you want to do something here? And I couldn't really work with photography in a garden, so it kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone, and it was very delightful. And so I have no idea what I'm going to do next, but I'm very open to whatever comes next. Yeah.
Okay, last question, Lynn?
No question, just a comment. And I sit and I look out my window, and I came in Monday morning early and I saw the signs. And I was mesmerized by the signs, and I could see them turning. I went down to look at them, and you're exactly right. It felt like the trees had something to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just so beautiful, and the connectedness that was created just by what you have done. It was
And I think it's so important that we kind of find that connection to that rootedness,
Yes.
and that's how interdependent we are. And I think that kind of compassion can motivate the kinds of lifestyle changes that we need to make in order to move towards sustainable living. So
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Sawatzky. Okay, so we move on.
I do have a